For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Many Corinthian Christians could not fully accept the message of the cross. They felt that it was foolish to believe that one man's crucifixion could lead to the salvation of mankind. They thought that there must be more that someone could do in order to earn salvation. But we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. To the Jews who were looking for signs, the crucifixion of Christ was a stumbling block. In their minds, the Messiah was supposed to be powerful and triumphant. They could not understand how the Messiah could suffer and die in such a way. To the Greeks who were looking for wisdom, the cross of Christ was foolishness. The idea of a crucified Christ was not politically, logically, or morally reasonable to the Greeks. So we know what the Jews and the Greeks were looking for, but what are you looking for today? Take a second and think about what you are looking for. No matter what you look for, if you look for something in this world, you will never overcome the feeling of powerlessness. Let's look at verse 24. Let's read that together. Let's go. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Those who follow God have a different view of the cross. Those who accept the message of the cross, to those who accept the message of the cross is the power and wisdom of God. Notice that these are the very things that the Jews and Greeks were looking for, power and wisdom. The cross demonstrates God's power because the crucified Messiah took on the sins of the whole world. Through Jesus' death on the cross, we can experience God's power of salvation. The cross demonstrates God's wisdom because it simultaneously displayed God's justice and God's mercy. God's justice was shown by the penalty of sin being paid, while God's mercy was shown by Jesus taking our punishment. I'm hoping that by now you know where we can experience the power of God. It is at the cross of Jesus Christ. God displayed his power through Jesus, who paid the penalty for our sins at the cross. Those who accept the message of the cross do not have to suffer under sin's power because they have access to God's power. There is no guilt or shame at the cross, and there is no deception at the cross. At the cross, you can encounter the power of God's forgiveness, mercy, and love. As Paul says, the message of the cross is the power of God. There is no other way to experience the power of God. Being healed, finding a job, even seeing an end to the pandemic, anything else we look for, pale in comparison to the power of God at the cross. If I were to summarize all these things into one word, it would be security. The Jews looked for signs, the Greeks looked for wisdom, and Andrew looks for security. I feel like I'm constantly trying to get myself into a position where I feel secure. However, it seems like whenever I make one step in the right direction, I feel less secure than I did before. Through tonight's passage, I realized that I started adding to the message of the cross. I no longer simply depend on the power of the cross, but I try to do things by my own strength. Tonight's passage is challenging me to let go of my human aspirations and simply trust the power of God through the cross.